My name is Edwin Marshall, 70 years old, and until recently, a reluctant resident in my son Jackson and daughter-in-law Amanda's home. After my dear Martha passed 3 years ago, I sold our house and moved in with them, believing their invitation was genuine. This Christmas morning, while retrieving my coffee mug, I froze hearing Amanda whisper, "After the holidays, we tell him about the nursing home." My heart crumbled, but my mind sharpened. They had no idea what this retired engineer was capable of planning. If you're watching this from a family gathering, let me know in the comments and hit subscribe. What I did next might save someone you know. Martha and I built our life together across 45 wonderful years. We met in college, where I was studying engineering and she was pursuing art history. Her vibrant perspective balanced my analytical mind perfectly. After graduation, we married in a simple ceremony with close friends and family, starting our journey together with more love than money, but plenty of dreams. I spent my career designing residential buildings and commercial spaces, taking pride in creating structures that would stand the test of time. Martha taught art at the local high school, inspiring generations of young minds to see beauty in the world around them. We saved carefully, built our dream home on 2 acres just outside of Pittsburgh, and raised our only son, Jackson. Jackson was always a good boy, sensitive and intelligent. Perhaps we sheltered him too much, Martha and I sometimes wondered. He excelled academically, but struggled with confrontation and difficult decisions. When he brought Amanda home during his junior year of college, I noticed immediately how she took charge of situations, making decisions while Jackson deferred. Martha whispered that perhaps he needed someone strong, but I worried about the imbalance. The years passed quickly. Jackson and Amanda married, had 2 beautiful children, Ethan and Lily, and built careers in finance and marketing respectively. Martha and I settled into retirement, enjoying our garden, community volunteering, and occasional travel. Life was good, predictable, comfortable. Then came the diagnosis. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. Martha fought bravely for 11 months, but cancer shows no mercy. I spent every moment by her side, watching helplessly as she faded. When she squeezed my hand one final time and whispered, "Live well, my love," I promised I would try, though I had no idea how to exist in a world without her. The following months passed in a fog of grief. Our house, once filled with laughter and love, echoed with silence. Each room held memories that both comforted and tormented me. I went through motions, paying bills, buying groceries, attending church, but inside, I was hollow. 6 months after Martha's passing, during Sunday dinner at their house, Jackson and Amanda presented their idea. "Dad," Jackson said, setting down his fork, "we've been talking. This big house is too much for you alone. Why not sell it and move in with us? We have the space since we finished the basement apartment." Amanda nodded enthusiastically. "The kids would love having you here. You could help with homework, teach Ethan woodworking, and have family around instead of rattling around that empty house." I hesitated, valuing my independence despite the loneliness. "That's very kind, but I wouldn't want to impose." "Nonsense," Amanda insisted. "Family should stick together. Plus, you could contribute to our household expenses instead of maintaining a whole house. It makes financial sense for everyone." After several more family discussions and considerable soul-searching, I agreed. We consulted attorneys, drawing up an agreement stating I would contribute $100,000 toward their mortgage in exchange for lifetime occupancy rights to their finished basement apartment. I would also pay monthly for utilities and food. The arrangement seemed fair, giving me companionship while maintaining some independence. Selling our family home was harder than I anticipated. Each object packed represented a memory, a piece of the life Martha and I built together. I kept only what would fit comfortably in my new space, donating Martha's clothes and many household items to charity as she would have wanted. The early days with Jackson's family were pleasant, even healing. My basement apartment had a small kitchenette, bedroom, bathroom, and sitting area with a separate entrance, but I spent most waking hours upstairs with the family. Mornings began with helping the children prepare for school. making lunches while Amanda rushed to dress for work. Evenings involved homework help, dinner together, and often board games or movies. Sunday dinner became my special contribution. Using Martha's recipes, I prepared traditional family meals, teaching Lily and Ethan cooking skills as they assisted. "Grandpa, tell us again about the time you and Grandma got stuck in that snowstorm," they would request, eager for family stories that connected them to their heritage. I found unexpected joy in grandparenting. 10-year-old Ethan showed interest in building things, reminding me of myself at his age. Together, we constructed birdhouses, repaired bicycles, and built a treehouse in the backyard. 8-year-old Lily, artistic like her grandmother, spent hours beside me learning watercolor techniques Martha had taught me years ago. Jackson seemed pleased having me around, often seeking advice about home repairs or financial decisions. We revived our fishing trips, something we had enjoyed during his childhood, but abandoned during his busy adult years. During these quiet mornings on the lake, I felt connections strengthen between us. Even Amanda seemed satisfied with the arrangement. She appreciated my financial contribution and help with childcare during their busy work schedules. When friends visited, she proudly introduced me, saying, "We have 3 generations under one roof, just like families used to live." For the first year, I believed I had found the perfect solution to my loneliness, contributing to a household while maintaining dignity and purpose. I felt Martha would approve of this arrangement, seeing our son and grandchildren growing with the wisdom of an elder among them. I thought we were building something beautiful together, a modern version of the extended family that had once been the backbone of American life. The shift happened so gradually I nearly missed it. Around 14 months after moving in, small changes in Amanda's behavior began registering in my awareness. Her morning greetings became perfunctory, often accompanied by comments about my routine. "You always use too much coffee, Edwin. Or do you really need the kitchen for a full hour every morning?" These remarks came wrapped in smiles but carried unmistakable irritation. Initially, I adjusted, preparing breakfast earlier or using less counter space, eager to maintain household harmony. But the complaints continued, shifting to new areas like my evening television programs being too loud or my laundry taking too long despite my doing it during weekday afternoons when the house was empty. One Tuesday afternoon, while retrieving mail, I overheard Amanda on the phone in the kitchen. Not intending to eavesdrop, I nonetheless froze hearing my name. "Living with an old man has its challenges," she told her friend, voice lowered but clearly audible. "He tries to help, but everything takes him forever. And the way he sighs about Martha constantly, like we should all still be grieving 3 years later." Her words stung, especially since I had consciously avoided mentioning Martha too often, knowing others had moved forward. I quietly returned to my apartment, considering whether I had overstayed my welcome despite our agreement. Jackson, too, began changing subtly. Our fishing trips became less frequent, always canceled due to work commitments or projects around the house. When we did speak, conversations remained superficial, without the depth we had rediscovered during my first year there. If small disagreements arose between Amanda and me, Jackson inevitably supported his wife, sometimes avoiding my gaze while doing so. The most concerning change involved finances. Though our legal agreement was clear, Amanda began making comments about household expenses increasing. "Utility bills are through the roof since you moved in," she mentioned during dinner, though I had been contributing the agreed amount monthly, and grocery costs have nearly doubled. Confused by these claims, I reviewed my bank statements and our agreement. My contributions remained consistent and generous, covering far more than my actual consumption. Moreover, I had contributed $100,000 toward their mortgage, a substantial sum that had allowed them to refinance at better terms. My curiosity aroused. I began paying closer attention to household finances. Jackson had always been somewhat careless with money, taking after neither Martha nor me in financial discipline. One afternoon, while helping Ethan with homework at the dining table, I noticed an open laptop with a banking website visible. Not intentionally snooping, I nevertheless saw multiple credit card accounts showing significant balances. Later, helping Lily find art supplies in the office, I encountered past due notices for their property taxes, despite my substantial contribution toward housing expenses. Most troubling, while searching for stamps in the desk drawer, I found brochures for several nursing homes, with costs and amenities highlighted. These discoveries painted a disturbing picture. Despite their comfortable dual income and my significant financial contributions, Jackson and Amanda appeared to be struggling financially, possibly due to overspending. Their solution, it seemed, might involve changing our living arrangement despite our legal agreement. Through all this, my relationship with my grandchildren remained my greatest joy and comfort. Ethan and Lily sought my company eagerly, sharing school achievements, asking for help with projects, and simply talking about their lives. "Grandpa, can we build another birdhouse this weekend?" Ethan would ask, his enthusiasm washing away my worries temporarily. "Will you help me practice my presentation?" Lily would request, reminding me of how Martha used to rehearse her lectures with me. However, even these relationships began facing interference. Amanda started scheduling more activities during times Ethan and I usually worked on projects. "He needs to develop other interests," she explained when I mentioned the pattern. Lily's art lessons with me were frequently interrupted by sudden needs to practice piano or complete chores that could easily have been scheduled differently. The children noticed these changes too. "Mom seems angry when I ask to spend time with you," Ethan confided during a rare moment together in the garage workshop. "Did you guys have a fight?" I reassured him, not wanting to create divided loyalties. "Adults sometimes have different ideas about schedules and routines. Your mom works hard to give you lots of opportunities." Lily, perceptive beyond her years, observed more directly. "Mom talks different about you when you're not there," she said while we painted together one afternoon. "Dad gets that funny look like when he has to tell someone bad news." I maintained a positive approach with the children, never criticizing their parents, but internally my concern deepened. Amanda began making comments about people who recognize when it's time for a change and knowing when arrangements have run their course. Jackson avoided conversations about future plans, changing subjects when I mentioned next summer's garden or holiday plans for the following year. I began feeling like an unwelcome guest rather than family, despite the legal agreement and financial contributions that should have secured my place. More troubling, I recognized signs that Jackson and Amanda viewed me as a financial resource rather than a beloved family member. The realization cut deeply, making me question not only my current living situation, but aspects of my relationship with my son I had never before considered. By the 18-month mark of my residency, Amanda's passive-aggressive behavior intensified beyond subtle comments into tangible actions. I returned from a dental appointment one afternoon to find my bookshelf had been moved to accommodate a new exercise bike that could easily have gone elsewhere. "We needed the space," Amanda explained breezily when I inquired. "Your things were collecting dust anyway." Another time, I discovered my gardening supplies relocated from the garage shelf to a damp corner where rust would quickly damage my tools. When I mentioned this, Amanda sighed dramatically. "We can't organize our entire home around your hobbies, Edwin. Jackson needs space for his golf clubs." These rearrangements extended beyond physical possessions. Family dinner, once a pleasant daily tradition, gradually excluded me through timing changes not communicated in advance. "Oh, we ate early because the kids had homework," Amanda would explain as I emerged from my apartment at our usual mealtime, finding them already finishing dessert. The pattern became unmistakable when I was excluded from planning Ethan's birthday celebration, despite having previously been involved in such events. I learned about the party details only 2 days before, when Lily innocently asked if I had bought Ethan a present yet. "Did no one mention we changed the theme to space exploration?" Amanda asked with feigned surprise when I purchased a baseball-related gift based on Ethan's current interests. Her eyes held no warmth as she added, "Well, we can always return it." Most concerning were the comments she began making within my hearing, clearly intended for my awareness while maintaining plausible deniability. "Some people simply cannot recognize when living arrangements need to change," she remarked to a visiting friend, while I read nearby. "It takes wisdom to know when it's time to move on, don't you think?" Jackson's position throughout this escalation troubled me deeply. My son, once warmly attentive during my early residency, now occupied an uncomfortable middle ground, neither defending me nor openly joining Amanda's campaign. During instances of clear disrespect, he would study his phone or suddenly remember tasks needing attention in another room. When I attempted private conversations, raising concerns about the changing household dynamics, Jackson responded with vague reassurances lacking conviction. "Amanda's just stressed about work," he might offer, "or things will settle down after this busy period." Never did he acknowledge the systematic nature of the exclusion or address the underlying issues. I noticed financial pressures increasingly influencing his behavior. Though they both earned solid incomes, signs of financial strain appeared throughout the household. Whispered arguments about credit card bills, collection notices arriving in the mail, and comments about investment losses suggested growing money problems despite their outwardly affluent lifestyle. One evening, overhearing them discuss refinancing the house a second time, I realized with dismay that my substantial contribution toward their mortgage had likely enabled additional borrowing rather than greater security. Discussions about expensive vacations and luxury car leases confirmed my suspicion that despite earning good salaries, they consistently lived beyond their means. These financial concerns seemed to correlate directly with Jackson's cooling attitude toward me. Conversations about household expenses increasingly included pointed references to utilities, food costs, and home maintenance, despite my consistent monthly contributions covering far more than my actual usage. Minor disagreements escalated into disproportionate tensions. When I suggested energy-saving measures to reduce the electricity bill, Jackson reacted defensively, as though I had criticized his ability to provide for his family. When I offered to increase my monthly contribution despite no obligation to do so, he seemed momentarily relieved before Amanda interjected that money isn't the only consideration in household arrangements. Throughout this deterioration, my emotional state suffered significantly. Having moved from my own home of 40 years into what I believed would be a supportive family environment, I now felt increasingly isolated despite living with people. Morning coffee, once enjoyed with Jackson before he left for work, became a solitary activity as he began leaving earlier or grabbing coffee on his commute. Anxiety about my future security grew daily. Though our legal agreement supposedly protected my right to remain in the home, Amanda's comments about nursing facilities and Jackson's evident discomfort suggested they sought ways to circumvent our arrangement. Each night I lay awake, wondering where I might go, if forced to leave, how I would establish a new home after having liquidated most possessions, and whether starting over at 70 was even possible. I missed Martha with renewed intensity during this period. Her wisdom would have helped me navigate these complex family dynamics. Her strength would have bolstered mine. Our home had represented security and happiness, and I increasingly regretted selling it despite the loneliness I had experienced there after her passing. The situation reached a critical point during Thanksgiving dinner, when Amanda's parents and siblings joined our celebration. Throughout the meal, they treated me as an outsider rather than family, directing conversations around rather than including me. Amanda's father made several comments about retirement communities these days being like resorts, while her mother described a friend thriving after downsizing from that big empty house. The orchestrated nature of these remarks became undeniable when Amanda's brother asked directly, "So, Edwin, have you considered what your next steps might be? Surely this was always a temporary arrangement?" The table fell momentarily silent, all eyes turning to me expectantly. Before I could respond, Jackson intervened with unusual assertiveness. "Dad's arrangement with us is long-term, as we agreed when he moved in." His eyes didn't meet mine as he added more quietly, "Though of course, situations evolve." Later that evening, retrieving a forgotten pie from the kitchen, I overheard Amanda and her mother discussing permanent solutions in facilities with excellent reputations. Amanda's voice carried clearly, After the holidays would be perfect timing. Start the new year with new arrangements. I returned to my apartment early, heart heavy but mind racing. As I sat contemplating my situation, a gentle knock interrupted my thoughts. Ethan and Lily stood in the doorway, concern evident in their expressions. "Are you okay, Grandpa?" Lily asked, leaning against my arm as they joined me on the sofa. "You seemed sad at dinner." "Everyone was being weird," Ethan added with the directness of childhood. "Mom's family doesn't talk to you like we do." Their perceptiveness and loyalty provided the evening's only comfort. As they nestled beside me, asking for stories about Thanksgiving celebrations from my childhood, I resolved to find a solution that would preserve my dignity while maintaining connection with these precious grandchildren who deserved better than witnessing their parents' treatment of their grandfather. December arrived with its customary festivities, lights appearing throughout the neighborhood and holiday music playing in stores. Despite the growing tension within our household, I threw myself into Christmas preparations with genuine enthusiasm, particularly focused on creating meaningful experiences for Ethan and Lily. Remembering Christmases from their father's childhood, I retrieved boxes of special ornaments Martha and I had collected over decades, each with a story attached. Together with my grandchildren, we carefully unwrapped these treasures, hanging them on the family tree while I shared the history behind each piece. "This glass boat commemorates the sailing trip Grandma and I took for our 25th anniversary," I explained, watching Lily's careful hands position it on a sturdy branch. "And this little wooden train engine represents the summer your dad became obsessed with railroad history." Ethan marveled at the collection. "You and Grandma saved everything important, didn't you?" His observation struck me deeply, contrasting with the disposable mentality I often observed in modern culture, including his parents' approach to possessions and, apparently, people. I devoted considerable thought to selecting perfect gifts for each family member, hoping quality presents might help repair fractured relationships. For Jackson, I found first edition engineering books from his childhood fascination period. For Amanda, despite our strained relationship, I commissioned a professional portrait of Ethan and Lily, something she had mentioned wanting. For the children, I created personalized gifts, requiring months of preparation. Ethan received a handcrafted wooden toolbox containing real quality tools sized for his hands, along with a notebook containing basic project plans we could build together. For Lily, I restored Martha's art easel, complete with professional quality supplies and a hand-bound book of Martha's watercolor techniques I had transcribed from memory. Throughout December, I maintained hope that holiday spirit might soften hardened attitudes. I noticed Jackson occasionally watching nostalgically as the children and I prepared traditional cookie recipes or constructed the elaborate Christmas village that had been part of his childhood traditions. Several times he nearly joined our activities before Amanda called him away for some urgent task. Christmas Eve arrived with the traditional family dinner and church service. During the candlelit sanctuary, singing carols that Martha and I had sung for decades, I felt momentary peace despite uncertainty about my future. The children's excitement about Santa's impending visit created genuine warmth within the household, temporarily suspending underlying tensions. Christmas morning began early with excited footsteps as Ethan and Lily raced downstairs at 6:30. I had risen at 5 to prepare Martha's traditional breakfast casserole, timing it to emerge from the oven just as gift unwrapping concluded. Coffee brewed, orange juice poured, and table set with Martha's holiday china, I prepared to join the family upstairs. Pausing at the staircase to retrieve my forgotten reading glasses, I heard Amanda's voice, unusually clear in the quiet house. "After Christmas, we tell him about the nursing home. I've already found one that has openings in February." Jackson's reply came softly, hesitant. "Are you sure this is necessary?" "The agreement we signed was poorly thought out," Amanda interrupted sharply. "We need that apartment for a home office now that we're both working remotely 3 days a week. Besides, your father needs more care than we can provide. It's the responsible decision." "He seems pretty self-sufficient to me," Jackson countered weakly. Amanda's voice hardened. "The decision is made. Cedar Grove has activities, dining options, and medical staff, He'll adjust. Now put on a happy face before he comes up. We tell him next week. My body froze, coffee mug clutched tightly in suddenly cold fingers. Though I had suspected their intentions, hearing the concrete plans verbalized sent waves of physical shock through my system. My throat constricted painfully as I processed the betrayal of my own son, agreeing, however reluctantly, to discard me against our explicit agreement. For several moments I remained motionless, considering immediate confrontation. Instead, drawing on decades of professional discipline managing difficult situations, I composed my features, took several deep breaths, and ascended the stairs with deliberate normalcy. "Merry Christmas, everyone," I announced, setting down the coffee pot with a steady hand that belied my inner turmoil. "Who's ready for breakfast after presents?" The morning proceeded with surreal normalcy. Children excitedly unwrapped gifts, including those I had prepared so carefully. Their genuine appreciation provided momentary distraction from the revelation echoing in my thoughts. Amanda performed her role flawlessly, giving no indication of the conversation I had overheard or her plans for my imminent removal. Jackson, less skilled at deception, avoided prolonged eye contact, focusing intently on assembling Ethan's new remote-controlled car or studying the instructions for Lily's science kit. His discomfort might have been imperceptible to others, but registered clearly to the father who had observed him since birth. With new awareness, I noticed countless details previously overlooked. The careful way Amanda mentioned next year's holidays without including me in those plans. Jackson's wincing reaction when I mentioned a spring garden project. The brochure for Cedar Grove Retirement Community, partially visible beneath magazines on the coffee table. Sitting among discarded wrapping paper, watching my family while they remained unaware of my knowledge, I experienced a profound shift in perspective. The betrayal crystallized my understanding that despite legal documents and financial contributions, I had no secure place in this home. More painful was the realization that Jackson, my only child, had chosen comfort and convenience over honoring commitments to his father. Yet amid this devastation came unexpected clarity. The children's genuine affection contrasted sharply with their parents' calculations. Lily curled naturally against my side, showing off her new art supplies, while Ethan insisted I help immediately with his first toolbox project. Their innocent assumption of my continued presence in their lives highlighted the impact my forced departure would have on them as well. Through the remainder of Christmas Day, I participated in family activities with outward calm, serving dinner, playing new board games, and watching holiday movies. Inside, however, my mind methodically assessed options and formulated responses to this unilateral decision about my future. By evening, when the excitement subsided and children headed to bed, I had progressed from shock to strategic planning. As an engineer, I had spent my career solving complex problems through careful analysis and creative solutions. Now, facing the most personal challenge of my life, I would apply those same skills to protect not only my interests, but the relationship with my grandchildren that deserved preservation. Returning to my apartment that night, I surveyed the space I had made comfortable over 3 years. Photos of Martha and our life together adorned shelves beside newer images of grandchildren. Books collected over decades lined carefully constructed shelves. The hand-braided rug Martha created during her first pregnancy added warmth to the modest space. "What would you advise, Martha?" I whispered to her smiling image. Though no audible answer came, I felt certainty about her response. Martha would counsel neither passive acceptance nor bitter confrontation, but rather principled action based on truth and self-respect. With that clarity, I began formulating my response to the betrayal I never expected from our only son. The week between Christmas and New Year traditionally represents reflection and planning. For me, it became an intensive period of strategic preparation. While maintaining normal household interactions, I devoted private hours to methodical investigation of my legal and practical options. My first step involved reviewing the original agreement with Jackson. The morning after Christmas, while the family visited Amanda's parents, I retrieved the document from my locked filing cabinet, reading every clause carefully. The language explicitly granted me lifetime occupancy rights to the basement apartment in exchange for my $100,000 contribution. Additionally, it specified that any change to the arrangement required mutual written consent with 90 days minimum notice. This clear documentation provided foundation for my response, but I needed expert confirmation of its enforceability. I contacted Gerald Winters, a retired attorney friend from my professional days, explaining my situation without emotional embellishment. Based on what you've described, they have no legal grounds to force you into a nursing facility, Gerald confirmed after reviewing the agreement. This is a binding contract with specific performance requirements. However, he cautioned, family disputes rarely resolve satisfactorily through legal battles alone. The emotional and relationship costs typically exceed any practical gains. His advice reinforced my instinct to seek resolution beyond merely enforcing the contract. I needed leverage beyond legal technicalities to address the underlying issues and secure a dignified future. My investigation deepened when Gerald suggested examining the current deed to the property. Public records revealed something significant I had overlooked. When contributing to the mortgage, I had been added as a minority owner on the deed itself. This discovery dramatically altered the power dynamics, giving me not just occupancy rights but actual ownership interest in the property. While researching these legal aspects, I made another troubling discovery. Using the family computer one afternoon to check my email, I noticed Amanda had left her browser open to a disturbing search history. How to break lifetime occupancy agreement, grounds for voiding contract with elderly parent, and nursing home involuntary commitment requirements. These searches confirmed my worst suspicions about their intentions, while revealing the calculated nature of their planning. Most disturbingly, some searches dated back months, indicating this had been their objective long before the Christmas morning conversation I overheard. Simultaneous with legal investigation, I began documenting the household situation comprehensively. Pennsylvania, where we resided, permitted single-party consent recording. Using my smartphone, I began recording interactions within my own living space and common areas when concerning conversations occurred. Within 3 days, I captured multiple instances of Amanda discussing my removal, including a particularly telling conversation with her sister. Once he's at Cedar Grove, we'll convert the apartment to a home office and Airbnb space for additional income. The financial advisor says we can recoup the investment within 18 months. This evidence collection extended to financial documentation. Reviewing my bank statements, I created a comprehensive record of every contribution I had made to the household. The initial $100,000, 36 months of utility and food payments, averaging $800 monthly, and additional contributions for home improvements, totaling nearly $20,000 over 3 years. Particularly concerning was discovering, through careful observation of discarded mail, evidence suggesting my contributions had been systematically misappropriated. Bills marked past due arrived despite my timely payments toward those specific expenses. Credit card statements revealed luxury purchases made contemporaneous with my contribution deposits. The financial picture clarified further when I overheard Jackson's tense phone conversation with a creditor, revealing substantial debt across multiple accounts. This explained the increasing pressure to convert my living space to income-generating purposes, confirming my status had shifted from family member to financial asset in their calculations. While gathering this documentation, I simultaneously developed my response strategy. A direct confrontation would likely provoke defensive reactions rather than meaningful resolution. Legal action alone, while potentially successful, would permanently damage family relationships, particularly affecting my access to Ethan and Lily. Instead, I conceived an approach combining documentation, strategic timing, and carefully planned independence. The home movie concept emerged as its centerpiece, inspired by the family videos Martha had always created for significant occasions. Over 3 days, I compiled video and photographic evidence into a compelling narrative. Using basic video editing skills learned during retirement, I created a presentation documenting the progression of events. My initial invitation to move in, Jackson and Amanda's explicit promises of permanent residence, my financial contributions, and the gradual campaign to remove me despite our agreement. I included clips of the house before and after improvements I had funded, bank statements showing my contributions, and selected recordings of Amanda discussing plans for my removal and financial gain from my living space. Throughout, I maintained factual presentation rather than emotional accusations, letting evidence speak for itself. Simultaneously, I began preparing for independence by researching housing alternatives. The irony did not escape me that while Amanda researched nursing homes without my knowledge or consent, I investigated appealing senior living options that would preserve my autonomy. Fortune favored me when I discovered River Point condominiums, a new development located just 3 blocks from my grandchildren's school. These single-level units offered accessibility, community amenities, and proximity to both family and essential services. Moreover, my financial position, bolstered by prudent investment of the remainder of my house, proceeds allowed comfortable affordability. A discreet meeting with Sandra Torres, a realtor specializing in senior transitions, confirmed River Point represented an excellent option. Unit 205 becomes available. January 15th, Sandra informed me. It offers everything you're seeking, including the short distance to your grandchildren's school. With housing secured, I established new banking arrangements, transferring funds from joint accounts to individual ones inaccessible to Jackson, who had been authorized on some accounts for emergency purposes. I updated my estate planning with Gerald's assistance, restructuring assets to protect my interests while still providing for Ethan and Lily's future education. Most challenging was planning the timing and approach for my departure. Direct confrontation risked explosive reaction before my preparations were complete. Simple disappearance might cause unnecessary distress to my grandchildren. After considerable reflection, I developed a multi-phase approach designed to establish my independence while preserving opportunity for relationship repair if Jackson demonstrated genuine remorse. By New Year's Eve, 6 days after overhearing their nursing home plans, my strategy was fully developed. I had secured new housing, protected financial assets, documented household realities, prepared visual evidence, consulted legal counsel, and organized practical logistics for transition. That evening, watching Jackson and Amanda prepare for their annual party with friends, I experienced not bitterness but clarity. Their matching designer outfits, purchased with credit cards I knew carried crippling balances, symbolized the superficial values that had corrupted their judgment. Their casual assumption that I would babysit the children without discussion demonstrated their continued expectation of my services even while planning my displacement. "We'll be back around 2, Amanda informed me, adjusting expensive jewelry. "The kids should be asleep by 9:30, though they can watch the early countdown on television." I nodded pleasantly, already knowing this would be our final interaction in the household we had briefly shared. "Enjoy your evening. The children and I will be fine." As they departed in their leased luxury vehicle, I turned to Ethan and Lily with genuine smile, determined to make our last evening together in this house a memory they would treasure. What they could not know was that while this chapter was ending, I was orchestrating a resolution that would preserve our relationship while establishing the respect and security I deserved. New Year's Eve with my grandchildren became precious hours I devoted entirely to creating positive memories. We built a blanket fort in the living room, baked cookies using Martha's recipes, and watched family-friendly movies until the early countdown at 9 o'clock. When they marveled at staying up past bedtime, I cherished their excitement, knowing significant changes approached. "This was the best New Year's ever, Grandpa," Ethan declared, as I tucked him into bed. "Way better than going to some boring grown-up party." Lily hugged me tightly before climbing under her covers. "Can we do this again next year?" she asked sleepily. "We'll definitely share many special times together," I promised carefully, avoiding specific commitments I might not be able to fulfill depending on how events unfolded. After ensuring both children slept soundly, I implemented the first phase of my plan. From my apartment, I retrieved 2 pre-packed suitcases containing essential clothing, medications, important documents, and irreplaceable personal items like photographs and Martha's jewelry. I loaded these discreetly into my car, parked conveniently near the side entrance closest to my apartment. Returning inside, I wrote a brief note explaining I was visiting an old engineering colleague and would return in a few days. This technically accurate statement would prevent immediate concern while giving me necessary time to complete arrangements. I left this note prominently displayed on the kitchen counter, where Jackson would find it upon returning from their party. Before departing, I stood silently in the doorway of each sleeping child's room, watching their peaceful breathing and committing their faces to memory. Though confident my plan would ultimately maintain our relationship, I recognized these moments marked the end of daily interaction I had treasured for 3 years. At 11:30, I drove away from the house that had briefly been home, experiencing not defeat but determination. Rather than being expelled against my will into an institution I neither needed nor desired, I was choosing my path forward with dignity and purpose. I checked into the extended stay hotel I had reserved for the transition period, a comfortable facility offering necessary amenities while I finalized my condominium purchase. As midnight arrived and fireworks lit the distant sky, I toasted Martha's memory with a single glass of champagne, sensing her approval of my chosen course. The following morning, January 1st, I contacted Gerald to activate the next phase of my plan. As co-owner of Jackson and Amanda's house, I exercised my legal right to request partition, essentially forcing sale of the property with proceeds divided according to ownership percentages. "Are you certain about this approach?" Gerald asked, concerned about potential family fallout. "I'm establishing necessary boundaries," I explained. "They plan to discard me, despite explicit agreements. This action creates leverage for equitable resolution, rather than allowing them to dictate terms unilaterally." Gerald nodded. Understanding my strategy went beyond revenge to establishing respect. "I'll file the paperwork today. Given your co-ownership status and their documented breach of occupancy agreements, the court will likely grant the partition request promptly." The real estate portion of my plan proceeded with remarkable efficiency. Sandra Torres, my realtor, coordinated with a trusted colleague to handle the forced sale proceedings. By January 2nd, property assessment was underway, with market analysis suggesting substantial equity had accumulated since purchase. Critically, I insisted on protecting my grandchildren's interests throughout this process. 10% of my proceeds must be placed in education trusts for Ethan and Lily, I instructed Gerald. Regardless of adult conflicts, their future security remains priority. Gerald established appropriate trust structures immediately, ensuring funds would be available for college regardless of relationship developments with their parents. This provision reflected my commitment to responsible grandparenting, even while asserting my own rights. Within 48 hours of filing, the court approved the partition request given clear documentation and my minority ownership position. By January 4th, a for-sale sign was scheduled for installation the following morning, while Jackson and Amanda remained unaware of these developments. Their discovery of my absence generated precisely the reaction I anticipated. Beginning New Year's Day, my phone received increasingly urgent messages, beginning with casual inquiry about my whereabouts and escalating to demands for immediate contact. I monitored these communications without responding, allowing necessary pressure to build while I completed preparations. On January 5th, exactly 1 week after overhearing their nursing home plans, I arranged for professional installation of the sold sign rather than the standard for sale placard. This strategic choice, while technically premature, served specific psychological purpose in establishing unambiguous consequences for their actions. The installation was timed precisely for 3 o'clock, when Jackson and Amanda typically arrived home from work. Sandra confirmed the sign placement personally, texting confirmation when completed. Within minutes, my phone exploded with calls and messages reflecting panic rather than concern for my well-being. "Dad, what the hell is going on?" Jackson's voice message demanded. "There's a sold sign in our yard. Call me immediately." Amanda's message carried more transparent concerns. Edwin, whatever you think you're doing needs to stop right now. This is our house. You had no right. Their reactions confirmed my assessment of priorities. Neither message expressed concern for my safety or whereabouts, despite my week-long absence. Their exclusive focus on property and control revealed volumes about their fundamental values. After allowing several hours for reality to penetrate fully, I texted Jackson directly. I will return to the house at 7 p.m. to discuss transition arrangements. I have requested police presence to ensure civil conversation. This final element, involving law enforcement, represented not escalation but necessary protection. Given Amanda's demonstrated hostility and the significant financial implications involved, professional peacekeeping presence would prevent potential volatility. Officer Thomas Rodriguez, responding to my request for civil standby assistance, met me near the property at 6:45. After explaining the situation factually, including my legal co-ownership and the household tension, he agreed to accompany me inside. We don't intervene in civil matters, Officer Rodriguez clarified, but we can ensure conversations remain nonviolent while parties discuss legitimate concerns. Arriving exactly at 7, I found Jackson and Amanda waiting with evident agitation. The sold sign dominated the front yard, its red letters visible even in evening darkness. Their expressions combined anger, confusion, and the dawning recognition that they had severely miscalculated. Edwin Marshall? Officer Rodriguez confirmed as we approached the door. I'll be present during your conversation with the residents. Amanda immediately attempted controlling the narrative. Officer, this is a misunderstanding. This is OUR house. He's just renting a room from us. Officer Rodriguez maintained professional neutrality. Property ownership will be determined through appropriate legal channels. I'm here solely to ensure civil discussion. Entering the house I had departed 1 week earlier felt surprisingly empowering rather than difficult. The familiar environment no longer represented vulnerability, but rather the site of necessary truth-telling. Jackson and Amanda followed us inside, visibly unsettled by the police presence and my calm demeanor. Where have you been? Jackson demanded immediately. And what's this about selling our house? I've been establishing new living arrangements, I replied evenly. After overhearing your Christmas morning conversation about placing me in Cedar Grove Nursing Home against my will and our explicit agreement, I've made alternate arrangements that preserve my dignity and independence. Their shocked expressions confirmed they hadn't realized I overheard their conversation. Amanda recovered first, defaulting to denial. You misunderstood. We were discussing options, not decisions. Perhaps this will clarify matters, I responded, removing my laptop from its case. I've prepared a presentation I believe will establish shared understanding of our situation. Setting up the computer on the dining table, I launched the video compilation I had prepared. I call this Home Truths, I explained, pressing play as Officer Rodriguez positioned himself near the doorway, observing with professional detachment. The presentation began with documentation of our original agreement, showing Jackson's signature on lifetime occupancy provisions. It continued with bank records showing my substantial financial contributions, then transitioned to recorded conversations of Amanda discussing nursing home plans and financial benefits of converting my living space. Particularly powerful was the section detailing their financial mismanagement of my contributions, showing luxury purchases made contemporaneous with my deposits meant for household expenses. The evidence was presented factually without editorial commentary, allowing documentation to speak for itself. Jackson's face registered increasing distress as the presentation continued, while Amanda's expression hardened into defensive anger. When the final segment played, revealing her conversation about involuntary placement and subsequent financial benefits, she lunged toward the computer. This is illegal. You can't record private conversations. Officer Rodriguez stepped forward slightly. Please maintain appropriate distance, ma'am. I continued calmly. Pennsylvania law permits single-party consent recording. Everything presented was legally obtained and documented. More importantly, it represents truth you both attempted to conceal while planning to violate our agreement. Jackson, visibly shaken, dropped onto the sofa. Dad, I never wanted. It wasn't my idea to. Decisions made together carry joint responsibility, I interrupted gently but firmly. Your silence represented agreement with plans affecting my life fundamentally. Amanda shifted tactics from denial to attack. This is manipulation. You're trying to punish us because you're lonely and bitter since Martha died. Officer, he's mentally unstable. Officer Rodriguez remained professionally neutral. This appears to be a civil contract and property dispute, requiring appropriate legal resolution. If anyone needs assistance with emotional regulation, I can request additional support services. His subtle professionalism effectively neutralized Amanda's attempt to pathologize my legitimate response to their actions. She fell silent, recognizing her strategy had failed before an objective observer. I continued explaining the current situation clearly. As co-owner of this property, I have exercised my legal right to partition, requiring sale with proceeds divided according to ownership percentages. This decision is not reversible. Jackson looked up, finally asking the central question. What do you want, Dad? Respect, honesty, and recognition of my autonomy. I answered without hesitation. I've secured appropriate housing near the children's school and established financial independence. I will maintain relationship with my grandchildren through structured visitation, while you both reconsider the values you demonstrate through your actions. The conversation continued for nearly 2 hours, cycling through predictable stages of denial, anger, bargaining, and eventually reluctant acceptance of changed circumstances. Throughout, Officer Rodriguez's presence ensured discussions remained nonviolent despite emotional intensity. Eventually, practical arrangements took precedence over recrimination. I explained the property would officially list the following day, with expected closing within 60 days, given the desirable neighborhood. They would receive appropriate percentage of proceeds reflecting actual ownership shares. We can't possibly find another house and move in 2 months, Amanda protested. This is unreasonable, precisely the position you intended to place me in, I observed without malice. However, unlike your nursing home plans, this process includes fair financial compensation reflecting market value of your property share. As our discussion concluded, I felt not triumph, but clarity. The painful confrontation had established truth as foundation for whatever relationship might eventually rebuild. Standing to leave, I thanked Officer Rodriguez for his assistance and addressed my son directly. Jackson, when you're ready to discuss rebuilding our relationship based on mutual respect, I welcome that conversation. My love for you remains unchanged, despite my disappointment in recent choices. To Amanda, I simply nodded politely, recognizing further exchange would likely prove unproductive. As I departed the house that evening, I carried certainty that regardless of emotional turbulence, I had established necessary boundaries while maintaining dignity throughout the process. The days following the confrontation unfolded with unexpected developments. Jackson contacted me the very next morning, his voice carrying unfamiliar humility. Dad, can we talk? Just us? We met at a quiet coffee shop near my hotel, Jackson arriving with evident emotional exhaustion. I need to apologize, he began without preamble. I convinced myself I was caught between impossible choices, but the truth is I failed to honor our agreement and my obligation as your son. His candor surprised me. What prompted this reflection? I asked. Watching that video compilation forced me to see our behavior objectively, he admitted. Then, after you left, I found letters from Cedar Grove nursing home Amanda had hidden from me, showing she'd already paid deposits and scheduled your admission for January 15th without discussing financial details with me. This revelation explained the urgent timeline Amanda had established. I suspected finances drove many decisions, I acknowledged. Jackson nodded painfully. We've been drowning in debt for years. Your contributions helped temporarily, but we continued overspending. Amanda convinced me converting your apartment to rental income would solve our problems. Financial challenges don't justify breaking explicit agreements, I noted without anger. Honesty would have opened different solutions. I know that now, he acknowledged. After seeing those videos and realizing how we've treated you, I'm ashamed. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know I recognize how wrong this was. His sincerity seemed genuine, though experience had taught me to evaluate actions above words. I appreciate your acknowledgement. Moving forward requires changed behavior, not just recognition. In contrast to Jackson's apparent remorse, Amanda's response proved predictably hostile. Within 48 hours of the confrontation, she engaged an attorney attempting to challenge the partition order, claiming emotional manipulation and undue influence. Gerald contacted me immediately upon receiving their legal filing. This has no merit given your documented co-ownership and their demonstrable breach of agreement, he reassured me. However, it demonstrates continued adversarial intentions. The court agreed with Gerald's assessment, denying Amanda's petition while confirming the property sale would proceed as ordered. This legal validation reinforced the righteousness of my position while establishing clear consequences for their attempted manipulation. More concerning was Amanda's effort to restrict access to my grandchildren, telling Ethan and Lily I had abandoned the family and instructing them not to speak with me. Jackson, to his credit, countered this narrative, explaining to the children that Grandpa and Mom and Dad had a disagreement about living arrangements, but he still loves you very much. This conflict created inevitable confusion for the children. Lily called me secretly from her tablet one afternoon, her voice small and worried. "Are you coming back, Grandpa? Mom says you left because you don't want to live with us anymore." My heart ached at her confusion. "I will always want to be part of your life, sweetheart. Adults sometimes need different living spaces, but that never changes love for family. Mom won't let us visit you," she confided. "She gets really mad when Dad says we should. These things take time to sort out," I reassured her. "Meanwhile, know I think about you every day." Ethan, practical like his grandfather, found his own solution. He began visiting after school, since my new condominium sat directly on his walking route home. "Mom doesn't need to know," he reasoned with 10-year-old logic. "I'm allowed to walk home alone anyway." These unauthorized visits concerned me regarding potential backlash. After the third occurrence, I contacted Jackson directly, explaining the situation. "I welcome seeing Ethan, but not through secrecy that could escalate tensions. Can we establish formal visitation arrangements?" Jackson, continuing his apparent commitment to improved relations, arranged mediation sessions, establishing regular grandparent visitation, despite Amanda's objections. The resulting agreement allowed weekend overnight stays twice monthly and Wednesday afternoon visits, providing structured connection while respecting household boundaries. Meanwhile, the property sale proceeded efficiently. The desirable neighborhood and well-maintained home attracted multiple offers within days of listing. By early February, contracts were signed with closing scheduled for March 15th. This timeline aligned perfectly with my condominium purchase, which completed February 10th. The bright, single-level unit featured an open floor plan, accessibility features, and most importantly, a second bedroom for grandchildren's visits. I furnished it carefully, creating comfortable space reflecting my personality while welcoming younger visitors. My first official grandchildren visit occurred February 18th. Ethan and Lily explored the new space with enthusiasm, helping arrange furniture and selecting wall locations for family photographs. "This place is actually cooler than our basement," Ethan declared, with typical directness. "You can see outside from every room." Lily, ever perceptive, asked the question likely troubling them both. "Are you mad at Dad, Grandpa?" I considered carefully before answering. I was disappointed by some decisions, but I'm not angry. Relationships sometimes need adjusting to work properly, like recalibrating sensitive equipment. "Like when I had to restart my tablet after it froze?" Ethan suggested. "Something like that," I agreed, appreciating his practical analogy. Sometimes systems need resetting to function correctly. Through winter into spring, our new arrangement gradually stabilized. Jackson visited independently, our conversations increasingly honest about family dynamics and his marriage challenges. Amanda and I are starting counseling, he shared during an April lunch. The house situation forced us to acknowledge deeper problems. The property sale concluded successfully, generating substantial proceeds divided according to ownership percentages. As promised, I established education trusts for both grandchildren, ensuring college opportunities regardless of family financial situations. This decision proved prescient when Jackson later confided they had accumulated over $200,000 in unsecured debt through years of lifestyle inflation. By summer, unexpected developments shifted family dynamics further. Jackson and Amanda separated, with Jackson acknowledging long-standing relationship problems the housing conflict merely exposed rather than caused. "We've been unhappy for years," he admitted during a fishing trip we had resumed. Using your situation as financial solution was symptom of deeper dysfunction. Amanda relocated to another state for a job opportunity, agreeing to summer visits for the children, while Jackson maintained primary custody. This arrangement, while challenging for the children initially, ultimately created household stability previously lacking. Most significantly for me, it removed primary obstacles to rebuilding family relationships on healthier foundation. 1 year after the confrontation that forced necessary change, I hosted Sunday dinner in my condominium, a tradition resurrected from earlier days. Jackson arrived with Ethan and Lily, bringing dessert and genuine conversation rather than underlying tension. The children moved comfortably through my home, helping prepare meals and sharing school experiences without the watchful monitoring that had previously constrained our interactions. "Dad, I never properly thanked you," Jackson said while children played nearby. "Your actions last January were painful but necessary wake-up call. They forced me to confront problems I had avoided for years. Sometimes difficult boundaries prove most loving," I reflected, thinking of lessons Martha would have articulated more eloquently. Standing firm prevented enabling patterns that hurt everyone eventually. This perspective had emerged through months of my own self-reflection and healing. Initially, after the confrontation, I experienced anger about the betrayal and time lost to false pretenses. Gradually, however, I recognized how establishing clear boundaries had ultimately benefited everyone involved, including Jackson and the grandchildren. Through volunteer work with elder rights organizations, I channeled this experience constructively, helping others navigate family conflicts and housing transitions with dignity. "Your situation illustrates why documented agreements matter," I explained to seniors in community workshops. "Love without respect creates vulnerability rather than security." Most meaningful was the transformed relationship with my son. Without Amanda's interference and financial desperation driving decisions, Jackson gradually reclaimed personal values, more aligned with how Martha and I raised him. Our conversations deepened, addressing meaningful subjects rather than superficial pleasantries. "I realized I've spent years trying to project success through possessions," he confided during autumn hike. "The house, cars, vacations, all funded by debt while ignoring what actually matters. Material success offers poor substitute for character," I observed without judgment. "Your mother understood that inherently." "I'm trying to teach Ethan and Lily that now," he acknowledged, "using your example of choosing dignity over accommodation." These conversations reflected healing impossible to imagine during the previous Christmas when overhearing nursing home plans. By establishing necessary boundaries, rather than accepting mistreatment, I had created opportunity for authentic relationship rather than enabling destructive patterns. The most profound lesson emerged gradually through this journey. Dignity requires occasional difficult stands against even beloved family members. True respect cannot exist alongside exploitation, regardless of blood connection or social expectation. Most importantly, age should bring wisdom and appropriate boundaries, rather than increasing vulnerability to manipulation. My story resonates with many seniors facing similar challenges in family dynamics. If you've experienced pressure regarding living arrangements or financial decisions, remember that dignity matters at every age. Standing firm when necessary demonstrates self-respect while establishing healthy boundaries for all relationships. Have you faced difficult family decisions about living arrangements? Share your experience in comments below to help others navigate similar challenges. Like this video if you believe seniors deserve respect and dignity in all family interactions. Subscribe for more stories about maintaining healthy boundaries through life's transitions. And please share with someone who might need encouragement, standing firm in difficult family situations. Remember, protecting your dignity isn't selfish. It's necessary modeling for younger generations watching how we handle life's challenges. Thank you for listening to my journey from betrayal to empowerment. May your own path forward include both necessary boundaries and opportunities for genuine healing.